Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to your calendars franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we simulated to a day before the trade deadline, and so far we still have a really good record of 39, 18, and 4. There has been still the underlying problems of our defensive play and our special teams. Now, we are very good offensively, as you can see, 3.87 goals for per game, which is second best in the NHL, but we're 17th in goals against and 17th on the power play. We are 26th on the penalty kill now. At one point, it was actually a lot worse than this, so it is improving a bit. But definitely there is some underlying problems with this roster. Now, I'm hoping that obviously once we get to the playoffs, it kind of corrects itself a bit. But obviously, we are heavily reliant on scoring a lot of goals to win games, it seems like, at the moment now. If we go to our player stats on our roster, you can see we're getting some really good depth scoring. Like, everybody on this team has been contributing quite nicely. Like, if we sort by goals on this team, we don't have a superstar that's got like 40 plus goals, but we have a lot of guys who have scored more than 10 goals this season, and a lot of them are defenders too. So far been pretty impressed with everybody on the roster. Has been some underlying issues, like the youngster Dempsey is a -10 right now. I'm not going to say it's fully a bad thing for him to be bad defensively. He is honestly only 21 years old, so it kind of makes sense that a rookie like him wouldn't do so well, but definitely the fourth line has been the worst line defensively, and I don't really know if there's anything we could do really to address stuff like that, at least at the moment. The goaltending numbers from Solovyov this season also have been very bad. Also, Komatov hasn't been very good too, so I don't know why the goalies have been simulating this bad, but that's probably one of the main reasons why our goals against is as bad as it is. I'm hoping that obviously Solovyov could do what he's done in the past, though, in the playoffs and post some good numbers. So hopefully this regular season doesn't matter at all, because in the playoffs, like I said, he's been a very good goaltender despite having no Stanley Cup at this point in time. So we'll see what he's able to do for us down the stretch to see if that 892 could improve the rest of the way of the season, or if we're going to have to wait till the playoffs to see if he could turn into his true form. So hopefully this team could continue to win some games, and hopefully we could figure out some of our defensive play a little bit, at least before the start of the postseason. But anyways, before we start up simulating more of the season, let's get in your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll get into maybe making some trades if there's necessary trades to make, and we'll continue to sim the season. So the first comment is from Michael Dose. It says, weird players lost morale after Ovechkin trade, and yeah, it is kind of weird that there was morale lost after Ovechkin was traded away, because Ovechkin was briefly here, but I think maybe he just made a little bit of an impact on some players, and maybe he caught along with some guys right away. Like, there's some players that you bring in, and it seems like right away that the entire team just starts gaining morale because of that player, and I guess that's what Ovechkin was like. We decided to trade him away to, I think it was Vancouver, and that's how we brought in Russell for our fourth line, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just actually double check on some stats here. So you can see Russell's played 40 games with us. He's got 6 points. Like, he's definitely not doing as much offensively as Ovechkin was, but he is playing better defensively. And he also does have some pretty good face-off attributes, so he's winning some draws down there. He's playing some good offensive hockey, so I think he definitely fits that line a lot better than what Ovechkin did, because Ovechkin, like I said, a little bit more offensively minded, and he's been actually been doing pretty well in Vancouver, it seems like, since we dealt him there too. He had 9 points in 21 games with us, so he was actually not doing that bad, but the -5 is what kind of scared us away from holding on to him. And since then, he's picked up 15 points in 40 games with them. Probably getting a little bit more ice time, it looks like, as well. No, actually, he's getting less ice time with Vancouver, damn. So yeah, a little bit of a brief stint with us, but I guess a lot of players on our roster kind of really like this guy. So I don't know if he'll ever come back to our organization, but regardless, I think at least we kind of found ourselves a nice replacement with Russell on that fourth line to kind of help us make us a better defensive team, at least in some ways. And the last and final comment is from Sour Taco, who says, you might as well ride the team as is for the rest of the season and hope goaltending improves during the playoffs. You could look into Jay Shen on San Jose as a fourth line option, but it's probably not entirely necessary. The only change I would recommend more is moving Houghton to the third penalty kill unit, since he's an offensive defenseman, and see if that doesn't help more on that side of the puck. So yeah, that's something that we'll look into doing, is moving Houghton into the third penalty kill unit. I do like Houghton. I want him to have as much ice time as possible, but him being an offensive defenseman, obviously it does make a lot of sense to not have him probably on the second line penalty kill, was it? Oh, wait, no, he was on the second line penalty kill. I thought he was on the first one. Wait. I just got to double check what Saturn Talk was in again. Third PK unit. The third PK unit. Yeah, I think he's already... Oh, he's on the second PK unit. I guess we can move him to the third. And then we'd have to move who up instead? I guess we'd have to move Fisher up and put the two offensive defensemen together on the last one. I guess that kind of makes sense, but it's kind of a little bit of a risk. But let's do that. So we'll go Fisher on this unit with Schaefer. And then we'll go... This one will be Holmstrom on the left side, I guess. And we'll put Houghton as the other one right here. Put them on their offside. So maybe that that unit could go for some short-handed goals. That would be kind of interesting. But also, hopefully, he plays better defensively. Oh, and it's this one he might have been meaning, actually, because Houghton's on the first one of this. So, we will go to, on this one, we'll go with, who was it on the first one? I think it was Carlton we were going to go with. So, we'll go Carlton and Tatar. This one we'll go with Schaefer and Fisher. And then the third one, we'll go with the two offensive defensemen. Again, like I said, it's a bit of a risk putting two offensive defensemen together on the same penalty-killing unit. But at the same time, we might as well take some chances that that unit, since they give up a lot of goals, maybe they could score more goals. It also does get rid of a minus, which is kind of nice. So we'll see if that ends up helping things out a little bit. And yeah, then that means Houghton's going to be more of a guy that's getting power play time and 5-on-5 time. Maybe a little bit of penalty kill time, but not as much as he was getting before. Now, Saturn Talk was also mentioning about bringing in potentially Jay Shen from the Sharks. Let's go take a look at him. I'm not too sure, to be honest, if I'm going to obviously make any trades, but it's more just because I don't really know what to expect from this team when we get to the postseason. Like he was saying, hopefully the goaltending numbers improve once we get to the postseason, and we could honestly just stay pat, so that probably will be the play. But let's take a look at Jay Shen a little bit more. I think he was a forward, correct? Let's see, where are you, Jay Shen? Let me just sort this alphabetically. Maybe he wasn't a forward. Was he a forward? Oh, no, he was a forward, right winger. 79 overall, medium bottom, 6 forward, listed as a depth forward. Good two-way forward. Good defensive awareness. Good shot blocking and stick checking. Also has some decent offensive attributes, too, for a two-way. 19 points in 63 games, plus 11 this season. He's played on every single California-based team currently. That's actually kind of neat. He played in LA, Anaheim, and San Jose. He's 31 years old, but he's only played 302 career games. He looks actually pretty good, and he does fit all of our forward lines, but I don't really know if I could get him to play, so he'd have to be an actual depth forward for us, if that's the case. We could always improve Ulanov into him. Ulanov's currently scratched, though, isn't he? I think he's scratched, right? Yeah, he is. Okay, I think I know maybe the plan if Ulanov is willing to go to the Sharks. Is he willing to go to the Sharks? Of course he's not, damn it, man. I was hoping he'd be willing to go to the Sharks. Because if we could have got him to go to the Sharks, I could have done like a swap of that, because Ulanov won't lose morale because of ice time that way, if he gets dealt away. So, Oh, maybe I could... Oh, yeah, I could start a conversation and see if he'd be willing to go to San Jose. You know, I think that might be honestly the play. Because if we could do him for Shen, Shen would be a better depth forward to have than Ulanov. Because Ulanov's more of a offensive guy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, his awareness isn't very good. So I prefer probably to change him into a Shark if I can. So let's talk to Ulanov and see if he'd be willing to go to San Jose. And then we could bring Shen in instead. We would like you to waive your clause so we could trade you. Very risky. Let's talk about the clause option. Can you give me... Oh, it still says very risky. Can you give me 3 teams you'd be willing to get traded to? Persuasion failed, damn it, man. Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to trade him to San Jose, so I'd have to trade him to one of the teams he likes, and then basically bring in the other guy for with a different trade. So I guess that's what we're going to lean towards doing. So let's trade Ulanov to a different team. Which teams does he like, actually, for that matter? Because I think I want to get rid of Ulanov right now, because I'm not going to be re-signing him probably in the offseason anyways. So let's send him to a random Western Conference team. Let's go with, like, maybe Minnesota or something like that. So we'll go to Minnesota. We'll come back to the Sharks here in a second. So Ulanov will trade you to Minnesota. Minnesota actually doesn't want him. Is there any of his teams that actually want him, though? Because that might be a bit more realistic in a sense. Doesn't have very any value, so we probably could only get like a 7th rounder for him. We could go to Anaheim, I guess, and see if Anaheim has interest in Ulanov or not. But I think moving out from Ulanov is a decent thing for us to do. Because like I said, he's not going to really do much for us as a depth forward. Might as well give him to another team. Apparently Anaheim doesn't want him either. There's got to be one team on his list that actually would take him, right? That's a Western Conference team, preferably. Let's see, Calgary and Chicago. Let's check on those teams. Calgary, would you want Ulanov? Nope. Oh my god. Chicago, would you want Ulanov? The answer is yes, they would. Okay, so we'll guess we trade him to Chicago, even though Chicago won the cup last year. So we'll do Ulanov, and we will take back a pick. Maybe I could get more than a 7th rounder. No, I can't. They have more than 45 skaters in our organization. Of course they do. So Chicago's probably not going to work, so that's okay with me. Let me double check Ulanov's thing again. What other teams after Chicago? Colorado and the Blue Jackets. Colorado doesn't have interest. Columbus doesn't. God damn, man. This is harder than I thought. Dallas and Detroit. What about Dallas? Dallas has interest. Okay. So we could go send him to play with Anton Frundell, which is not a bad idea. So, would this 7th rounder work? Yes, it would. 7th rounder might have more value, so I might have to do some other stuff and add a pick to this deal. But Ulanov for a 7th, would that work? That's rejected. So I guess we're going to have to give up a future 7th round pick to get a 7th round pick just to get rid of Ulanov's contract, which is probably not really worth it in a sense. But like I said, Ulanov could be one of these guys that complain about ice time soon, and I don't want to have a morale crisis. And then we want to bring in that guy from the Sharks and Shen. So let's do that. Boom. And that's accepted. So a little bit of a weird trade to make, but I think it's good for us because now we will bring in Shen as that depth forward instead because he's actually listed as a depth forward. And he's a better fit for our lineup, I think, probably than Ulanov was too. So Shen probably won't fetch as much. So what we're probably going to give up to get Shen is probably going to be that 7th rounder we literally just acquired. So, oh my goodness, his cap hit. I didn't realize his cap hit was that high. Damn. I didn't realize his cap hit was $4.5 million bucks. But the good thing for us is we have cap space. And he's only signed for the 1 year. So I'm going to take him on for the year, even though he's technically making a lot of money. I think he'll be a good, useful depth forward for us. Maybe we even use him as a 4th liner in the playoffs at some point. But let's go 7th rounder for Shen and take him on full value. So kind of a weird deal to make as well. But we got that 7th rounder and we immediately flip it. So I think that was a good little lateral move, kind of, so to speak. Because now we've got ourselves a new potential 4th line guy. If for some reason one of these guys I decide to take out of the lineup. Which, can any of these guys take faceoffs out of curiosity other than Russell? I mean, Dempsey kind of can. So I might be willing to scratch Russell in that sense. Not that Russell's been bad. But Shen should probably be playing. Yeah, we'll go with that. So Russell would be scratched. Even though I do like Russell as a defensive player for the time being. Sprooks is scratched. Hamilton's scratched. That's good. And then having Shen as that new 4th line right winger. Dempsey playing down the middle because he can win faceoffs. Yeah, that's not bad. Obviously, if we need to, though, I could take a guy out of this lineup and then say, for instance, just put Russell in this spot. Because Russell would make this line a +1. So there is a chance at some point maybe Dempsey will be back out of the lineup if he's not playing good in the playoffs. But for right now, we're going to give him a chance to continue playing the rest of this regular season at least. And then in the playoffs, if we need to make ourselves better defensively on that 4th line, we could do that. So excited to see what Shen could do. Like I said, I think he's a good little bring-in. Sanataku was mentioned about bringing him in potentially. And I think he's probably exactly what this team kind of need on that 4th line. Because he's just got that good defensive awareness. He's got good stick checking. He also looks like he could bring some offense too. So we could put him on a penalty kill unit. It'll hopefully help our penalty kill. He's actually playing already with Kazanov, it looks like. Which Kazanov should be the one taking the draws, I guess, since Shen can't win it. So Shen will maybe help out our penalty kill a little bit. And if that's the case, that would be good because obviously our penalty kill has not been very good this season so far. So those are the moves we're going to make in this episode. We're probably not going to make any more than that just because I honestly don't know what to expect from this team going forward. But let's go to a day past the deadline. We'll take a look at some AI trades just in case any former players got dealt. And yeah, continue simulating the rest of the season. But so far, so good, I think, with the moves we've made. Also, Quinton Musty is absolute trash. I don't even know why he was in the NHL for Dallas, but I guess since we decided to trade them Ulanov, they decided to put Musty on waivers. All right, so game against Vegas, 6-2 loss going into the deadline. I could jump in and just see if there's anything interesting, but I don't really think there will be, so let's just go continue simulating on that. And hope that this team can find itself out a bit better defensively going forward. But that 6-2 loss is not very good defensively for sure. As Tasaugas is on waivers, let's take a look at Tasaugas here just in case. 76 at 25, low 4. He's pretty much the exact same thing as Carlson in the AHL. So he doesn't have good offensive awareness either, really. So yeah, we're not going to take this guy in. Was he actually playing NHL time this season? He was. Damn, man. At 76 overall, was literally playing 61 games this year. That's kind of insane. Well, yeah, he's not very useful, so we are not going to be claiming him. But thanks anyways there, Montreal. All right, so let's take a look at some AI trades. See if there's anything interesting that we actually know in terms of players. Any former guys that used to be on a roster. So Belchet's got dealt to Philadelphia. Obviously, we remember Belchet's from the playoffs before, I think. Let's see what else we got. Wakabayashi got dealt. Okay. That's Braxton Wakabayashi, I think. I do recognize some of these names, at least from series that we've had in the past. A lot of generated guys, though, because at this stage, there's probably nobody that's actually real still playing. Looking for former guys. Zach Benson got dealt to Pittsburgh, so he's one of the only real guys probably left still playing at this point in time. Gargulio to the Rangers. I don't think I recognize him. Damn, that Kolzig goaltender. I don't know why San Jose just brought in that Kolzig guy, but that's a pretty huge addition. The LA Kings had to get rid of Morrow and Picard, but San Jose literally gets Kolzig, who I think won a Vezina really not that long ago, or came close to it. So I got to definitely take a look at that deal a little bit more in depth here in a second. So Morrow and Picard on LA, okay. Porter Martone getting dealt. That's pretty much that, okay. So let's take a look at that Kings and Sharks deal a little bit more in depth here. So Sharks getting Kolzig and Perry. Let's go to their contracts. We might as well. So yeah, Kolzig has always been a good goalie in this franchise mode. So there's a pretty big addition. Now they have 3 NHL goalies basically. But yeah, Kolzig's 34, so he is older. But this goaltender's had some fantastic numbers. Like he got dealt posting a .929 so far this year. Like I guess he was the backup in LA this season, but when he was with the Kings, this guy was really, really good. And playoffs, he's also, I'm pretty sure, maybe came close to winning a Stanley Cup. But yeah, he's never won a cup. He's won a Vezina 6 seasons ago, and he won 2 Jennings in his career. So he hasn't won a Vezina in a while, but he's definitely been like a finalist for the Vezina a couple times. So yeah, that's a pretty big addition for the Sharks. The LA Kings end up getting back a goalie prospect. They actually are going to be playing Schultz as a backup now in the NHL because of that deal with Koskaranta. So our former goalie prospect is going to get a chance to play full-time this year in the NHL now. He was doing really good in the AHL, so it's good to see him actually get a chance now. As last year he played 3 NHL games for the Kings. So shout out to Andreas Schulz. But if we go in the system, they brought in this fringe starter. And who else was it that they brought in that trade? Oh, it was Morrow, who's a 79 at 31. Damn, they might have actually got that goalie for not as expensive as I thought. It's probably because he's 34 years old, though. But yeah, Morrow and literally giving up a fringe starter goalie prospect. It's interesting. Good little move for both teams, I guess. But yeah, the Kings, I guess, are going to try and use Schulz as a backup now, which is nice. All right, so with that said, let's continue to simulate and see if our defensive stats can improve at all as we simulate the rest of the season. Obviously, our goals for per game is usually pretty good, so at least our offense should be still top 5 in the league by the end of the season. But hopefully our goals against, our penalty kill can improve. Our power play doesn't really have to improve too much unless it does fall off more, I guess. But let's go to the 23rd, take it a little bit slow with the rest of the season. So game against Philadelphia is a 5-2 win and a 3-0 win over Boston. So 2 good defensive games in a row. There's another good defensive game and another good defensive game. Okay, we're starting to play our good defensive game. That's what I want to see, at least over these last 4 games. 4-3 win, that's still a pretty solid defensive game. That's a good one there. And that's another one there. Game against Philadelphia, 3-1 loss. Okay. But for the most part, those are good defensive games compared to the early stages of the season. So I like that a lot because only 2 goals against, a shutout, 2 goals against, 1 goal against, 3 goals against, 2 goals against, 2 goals against, 3 goals against. So I think we definitely should be improving in our defensive play from those last few games at least. So we're on 46, 20, and 4. We have not clinched a playoff spot yet, but we're probably very close to it, I would assume. We have 12 games left this season. Let's go through this last 4 games of March and see if we can continue playing good. 6-4 win. I mean, that's not a good defensive game, but it's a good win. 5-4 shootout loss. That kind of sucks. Winnipeg is a 4-1 loss, and Dallas is a 1-0 shootout win. All right, so we've at least picked up a couple more shutouts as this season's gone on, so that's at least good to see. And we have clinched ourselves a playoff spot with 8 games to go, which is also good. We have Vancouver, LA, then Detroit, Columbus, Florida, Tampa, and in Columbus, Florida again. So let's go through 3 games at a time and wrap up the rest of this regular season. 5-4 OT loss, that's okay, I guess. LA 5-4 win. Okay, we're having some bad defensive games now a bit, but we're still winning a lot, so I'm not going to complain too much. 5-2 win over Detroit. Let's go through the first Columbus and Florida series that we have against them, I guess, and then Tampa afterwards. Seal Fito's been injured. Of course, he has to get injured at the end of the season. I'm going to just go replace player for the time being, but damn, that's a pretty big blow late in the season, but he should be back early into the playoffs. Damn, we literally just lost 9-1 to Florida as Drew Doughty just got fired by the Boston Bruins. That's actually kind of hilarious seeing Drew Doughty as a coach getting fired, but shout out to Drew Doughty. And then we beat 10-3 over Tampa. So we allowed 9 goals in 1 game against and got blown out. But then we blew out the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't understand this team, but we're definitely good offensively still. But we still have some games where we give up way too many goals against. Columbus and Florida, both wins as well. And we finish off the season 54-22-6, which has us finish as the second best team in the NHL, behind only the Nashville Predators. Damn. That's pretty impressive. I wasn't really expecting our team to do as good this season, but we literally finished 1 point behind Bjorkstrand's team in Nashville, which is kind of funny. So that's pretty impressive. Let's take a look at some stats here and see how our team did. Let's actually go to this so you guys can't see anything, and we're going to go to the stats. I'm not going to look at the team leaders yet because I don't want to load the team leaders. There you go. Perfect. We got to the standings, which is where I wanted to go. All right, so entirely, like I said, we finished as the second best team in the NHL. We just finished above the Kings, and yeah, we were by far the best Eastern Conference team. We were 13 points up on the Rangers, who were the next best Eastern Conference team. The Rangers are still scary, though, because Guerin and all that, but by far the best Eastern Conference team. Goals for per game this season, we were the second best offensive team, only behind the LA Kings. And then Seattle was behind us and all that, but 3.82 goals for per game. Pretty damn good offense, getting close to 4 goals for per game, which is awesome. So our offensive play was consistent pretty much all year round, because I think early in the season we were like first place for a while, and then we fell to second, but we never fell back after that, so good to see that. Goals against per game is still not great. LA was the best defensive team in the league too, damn. That's kind of scary. But yeah, we were all the way down here below mid-table at 3.12 goals against per game, so that 9-1 loss probably played a factor. But yeah, that kind of sucks that we weren't good defensively, but it could still correct itself in the postseason. Power play percentage, 16.4%. Our power play is still not very good, so that's another thing that hopefully corrects itself in the postseason. And then penalty kill percentage, 80.6%. Also wasn't very good. It was near the bottom of the league, actually, for that matter. So Yeah, it looks like we have a lot of things to work on, except for our goals for per game. So I'm kind of hoping that all those kind of like rewrite itself in the playoffs and we continue to score goals. Because if those improve and we continue to score as much goals as we did, we definitely could win a lot of games. We had 11 short-handed goals this year, though, which is one of the most in the NHL. So I guess we're a bit too offensive of a penalty kill. 25, 14, and 2 on home ice, and 29, 8, and 4 on the road. Wow. Very nice. 7, 2, and 1 our last 10 games. All right, let's take a look at some stats. The team leader in points was Mäkinen with 90 points. So a big year for Kari Mäkinen. Not really a surprise. I'm kind of curious on what the depth scoring is like. Let's actually hide the stats again for a second here. And I'm going to change it over to each individual position without even looking at stats here. I'm trying to close my eyes and not see who's what. There you go. Boom, boom, and there you go. Okay. So for centers, like I said, Mäkinen 90 points, 32 goals, 58 assists, plus 47. Another good year for Kari Mäkinen. Giordano, 65 points. He kind of slowed down actually a little bit, it looks like, after the trade deadline area. But 65 points is still really good. 19 goals and 46 assists. And then Ashton, who we brought in from the Nashville Predators, was actually pretty good this season, I would say. 45 points and 24 goals, plus 11. Like, he at least has signed into next season already. I think he's been a pretty solid addition to this roster. I don't know how I would compare him to Leahy, but I think he's maybe a better fit for this team than Leahy was. So, shout out to Ashton. And then Russell obviously only played those 44 games, but he was a +1 and had 9 points. So, he was actually getting better before we decided to scratch him. So, we could always put him back in the playoffs, but for right now, he's a healthy scratch. From a left wing perspective, Crane on 89 points and 37 goals. So, like I said, we don't really have a superstar that could score a shit ton of goals, but Crane almost hit 40 goals a season, and he was over a point per game. So, good year again for Crane. Love to see it. Cialfito had 81 points in 78 games. He is a pending UFA, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But he will be back for the early stages of the playoffs, likely. I'm hoping that we could re-sign him again in the offseason, but if we have to let him go, at least it gives a chance to guys like Mashenko and Kazanov maybe to get more ice time with the roster. But a good year from Cialfito. 71 points and 26 goals from Ragnarsson. So Ragnarsson had a good year as well. Glad we locked him up when we did. So shout out to Callie Ragnarsson. Biggerson 51 points, 26 goals. I like that a lot actually from Brian Biggers. Because obviously by moving up Bjorkstrand, it gave a chance to Biggers to take a step up. And I think he definitely did. Because last year 29 points, this year 51 points. So we could always have Biggers as a top 6 forward if Cialfito leaves still. And then if Cialfito does leave, then maybe Mashenko gets moved up. Because Mashenko also had a good year, 43 points this season. He's also still listed as a second line forward, so probably would be good to get him more ice time. Kazanov, 33 points, pretty solid. And Savage, 19 points. Not bad, -5, but that's okay. Right wing perspective, we had Shen on 28 points in 84 games. How much with us? 9 points in 21 games, +3. So he actually brought some offense to that fourth line. Also played good defensively. So I like the looks of Shen right now. I think he should definitely stay in the lineup for the start of the postseason. He also brought 2 short-handed points to our team. And also did some decent face-off work, which is kind of surprising. Had good takeaways. So, yeah, Shen is looking pretty solid at the moment. Love to see it. And then Dempsey, 23 points, -11. So he had still a bit of a rough defensive rookie season. But 23 points and 12 goals for the ice time he was getting, I think is pretty solid. And like I said, he should probably be a third-line guy for us next season, which kind of makes me feel like Cialfito maybe should leave, so that way we could get more guys into higher lines, basically. But I don't really want to let go of Cialfito either, but it might have to happen. From a defensive standpoint, Houghton hit 70 points and was +21 this year. Ole is still the GOAT, man, and he has not dropped off whatsoever. But yeah, Ole, 10 less points than last year. Good plus-minus again. He's continuing to be one of the best defensemen we've ever had. He's 5 points away from 800 career points. And obviously he has a shit ton of Norris trophies. So yeah, I'm really liking still Howden. What a trade acquisition that was when we made the deal with the Blackhawks back in the day. Absolutely amazing. And that contract is still a very good contract at this point in time. Tatar, who's a pending UFA, 43 points plus 14. Good season from him. Schaefer stepped up big time this year. 34 points and plus 18. That's actually a really good year for Schaefer. He's actually listed as a top 2 defenseman now. But yeah, Schaefer got a big contract in the offseason, and he stepped up this year. So if we lose Tatar, Schaefer and Houghton should probably be both top 2 guys. And then Holmstrom would have to play with maybe Carlton on the second pairing if we lose Tatar, that is. But Holmstrom had a big year too. 32 points and a plus 32, 19 goals. So he's definitely starting to finally find himself in the NHL a little bit, which is good to see as well. Obviously, he was a better fit on that top 4, and we gave him more of a chance this year, and he's definitely relished that quite well. Carlton, 31 points, plus 27. Carlton was also really good. And Fisher, 19 points and plus 19. I think our entire defensive core is pretty impressive. And then from a goaltending perspective, Solovyov had an .895 with 3 shutouts, 47 wins, but an .895. His goals against did drop below 3, though, so in this episode, he did definitely improve, which is good. Komatov still not the best numbers either, but kind of surprised both these guys didn't have the best save percentages this season with how good our roster did. But this could be Solovyov's last regular season with this team, and his last playoff run ahead as well. So shout out to Solovyov. He's probably going to end up dropping off relatively soon too anyways. But good year for this roster. Good year for this roster. A lot of goal scorers on this roster. You sort of by scoring. We had 2 30 goal scorers. We had 6 20 goal scorers. And a bunch of guys on 10 plus goals. Like the only 2 forwards that didn't have more than 10 goals was 2 guys. And on the defensive core, every defenseman had at least 4 goals. Some of them had 7 plus, or most of them had 7 plus. So I'm really impressed with the offensive production. But obviously now it comes down to if this team could actually do well in the postseason or not. So let's take a look at some stats around the league, see who led in points and all that. So the best forward this season was Torsten Davidson of the Vegas Golden Knights, 116 points. Guerin on the Rangers, who were the second best Eastern Conference team, 112 points and 67 goals. Guerin continues to be fantastic. Bouwmeester on 102 points for the New Jersey Devils. Interesting. And then Wallace on, obviously, the Rangers as well, 102 points. Enroth 101. Looks like it's starting to become a little bit more lower scoring again because there's still not a lot of guys on 100-plus points this season. Best goal scorer this season was Guerin with 67 goals. Next closest was Davidson on 58. Only 3 50 goal scorers this season, and one was a former Islander in Michelli. All right. Best defenseman in terms of points. Is it going to be Houghton again? The answer is yes. And I don't know if he's going to win it, though, because honestly, he could win it because of his offensive numbers. 7 more points than Brophy. But Brophy on the Kings was a plus 65. And then you have Neal, who was a plus 64. So I think they might honestly give it to Brophy because that plus minus is fantastic. I don't think I've seen a guy have a plus 65 on an AI team before, but yeah, I don't know if Houghton's going to win another Norris this season or not. If he does, it would be his 6th straight Norris. If not, Brophy might start winning a bunch because the Kings seem to be a pretty good team this season. Former defenseman Sal Malainen was up there in Colorado. It looks like, I guess, Colorado's fallen off a bit, but that's that. Okay. What about goalies? Best goalies in terms of wins was Solovyov. Like, Solovyov had the most wins amongst goaltenders this season, but the crazy thing is he had, like, the worst save percentage probably amongst starters. Legwand of the Vegas Golden Knights had the most shutouts, and he recently got injured, I guess, so that's a pretty big loss for the Vegas Golden Knights going into the playoffs. But best save percentage amongst starters is Pronger with a .925. Best goals against average by a starter is Pronger with a .232. So Pronger might have himself a Vezina. If we sort by 40 games, so the starters pretty much, the worst save percentage by a starter was technically Solovyov. Other than Robida and Johansson, I guess, but those guys are on bottom feeder teams, I would assume. But it's like, look at their records for these guys, and they had below these bad save percentages. Meanwhile, Solovyov had a fantastic win-loss ratio, but that save percentage was way down. So not necessarily ideal for Solovyov to be that low, but let's go to rookie skaters, see the points for the rookies. Ulf Eriksson, in Carolina, 53 points, and Samsonov in New Jersey, 53 points. All right. So there is all of that. So now comes the question of who we're playing in the first round of playoffs, and are we going to have an easy time this year in the playoffs? Are we going to find our defensive identity a little bit better? Are we going to continue our offensive identity a bit better too? The answer is going to be the Columbus Blue Jackets. I feel like we play Columbus so frequently, and I'm kind of scared anytime we play a team that's lower than us because I feel like we're going to get cheesed. But 44, 34, and 4 for the Blue Jackets this year. 3 and 7 in our last 10 games. A little bit of a playoff comparison going into this. We were second in goals for. They were 10th in goals for. They were 21st in goals against. We were 16th. We were 18th on the power play. They were 11th. And in penalty kill, we were 25th. They were 27th. So both teams have good offenses. They have a better power play than us, but everything else is relatively close. So could be an interesting series based on that. But let's take a look at the roster, and then we'll see how good their players also assimilated this season. And then that'll be it for this episode. But we've played the Blue Jackets quite often, so we probably know what's on their roster. And yeah, it's pretty similar, except for there's a player that I did not expect to see there, which you guys probably already could see him. But first line, Jackson Jacobson, Caden Woodworth, who's a good goal scorer. But Pekka Nielakainen, former New York Islander, has decided to sign in Columbus after a brief stint with the LA Kings. He had 84 points and 40 goals this season. Damn, man. What's with everybody that leaves our team having a good season? Because Wallace was like that too. But 40-goal season. I always really liked Nielakainen. I didn't really want to part ways with him. Yeah, he did good in LA in his brief time there. And then I guess he headed to free agency, got paid, and did really good. So shout out to Pekka. Kind of sucks we have to go up against him in the first round, though. Second line has Michael Nagy, who we've played a lot against. Same with Fantilli and Ola Axelson. Third line has Keaton Meyer. What a name. Riley Haley, another former Islander. Another former Islander for a brief bit. We brought him in for one season, 26 points in 55 games. He was on our playoff roster a few years ago, too. And then he signed in Minnesota. Now he's in Columbus, of course. And then he's playing next to Artem Kulemin. St. Louis. Maybe we've seen him before. Fourth line has Kent Estrada, Kent Johnson, so the two Kents, and Lars Rensfeldt. All right. So we got to watch out for... they don't really have a superstar forward, but I know that guys like Nielakainen can put up points. Woodworth is a good goal scorer, too. He also had 40-plus goals this season, 96 points. So got to watch out for especially this top line because they are actually kind of an underrated top line. A lot of guys were over a point per game on that line. So got to watch out for that. From a defensive standpoint, they have Denton Matejchuk still. Pekka Haken, which is not the former Haken of ours because he's in Chicago now. But we could say that guy was related to him. Second pairing has Gilbert Levasseur. They also have Francis Tanev. Cameron Rudder still there. So another former Islander. Former enforcer defenseman that we briefly had. And he still really doesn't do a whole ton. He did just have a career high in points, though. So shout out to him on that. Has played a decent chunk in the playoffs. Not very good defensively. But shout out to Rudder. And then there's also Lars Gustafsson, which also is a former defenseman of ours. He was with us briefly. We brought him in from Chicago. And he was good with us. He hasn't been as good in Columbus, like more offense, but worse plus minus. So, two former defensemen of ours. Two former forwards of ours. Any former goalies? No. Okay. Carson Chimera and Tristan Moorer. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so this is going to be probably a interesting series because Columbus actually looks pretty solid. Brady Wasselin's a scratch. Like, they don't really have, like, that superstar player. Like, they actually have nobody on this roster with an X factor, which is kind of insane. But they probably have good chemistry. They have former players that know how to score against us potentially. So we got to definitely watch out for Nielakainen and Haley, I would say. The defensemen like Rudder and Gustafsson, they're not going to do too much offensively, but I guess we got to watch out for them too. That's kind of funny. Didn't expect there to be that many former Islanders on that roster, but there is. All right, let's take a look at their player stats for the season as well, just so we can see who was the threats. Obviously, we know that top line was the threat, but I'm curious on their other lines as well. So if we go to Columbus here, so their forwards, yeah, Jacobson was good, Woodworth was good, Neil kind of was good. Drops off a bit afterwards, but Nagy still had 60 points, Fantilli had 57. Looks like they definitely could still get some offense throughout their lineup, but the plus minuses on their bottom six, like Kent Johnson being a minus 30 on this team, is kind of insane. So they do give up a lot of goals, especially on that fourth line. The two Kents and Lars Rensfeldt. Defensively, Denton Matejchuk had 32 points, but was minus 19. Tanev seems to be like a good Tanev defenseman, plus 20 and 26 points. All right. And in the goaltending numbers, Chimera had a 913 save percentage, surprisingly, on this team, though. And Moore was pretty bad as a backup. Interesting. So the most of the goals on that team come from Woodworth and Nielkainen and a Nagy and Kuhlman kind of as well. But they do get good production, it seems like. But yeah, that plus minus is kind of weird because their top guys, I guess, get a lot of good plus minus. But their bottom six is pretty distasteful. Bad plus minus across the board. Like, it's way worse than ours. But they definitely could still maybe beat us in the playoffs, which is kind of scary. I actually do want to briefly take a look at also the Dallas Stars points because I haven't seen Anton Friendell in a bit. I'm curious of what he's been doing. 71 points this year in Dallas, plus 12. Not bad. Oh, man, I kind of miss Anton Friendell, but he has definitely not been as good with the Dallas Stars as he was with us at some points. Has not been back in the playoffs since, though. So, shout out to Anton. He could end up retiring relatively soon. Damn. So there's that. Did Dallas make the playoffs this year, out of curiosity? I didn't see the playoff tree. Let's see. What do we got? So we got Kings and Flames, Vegas and Seattle, Nashville, San Jose, Chicago, and Utah. So no Dallas in the playoffs. Montreal, New Jersey, Florida, Toronto, us in Columbus, and in the Rangers and Penguins. I wonder what other teams have former players of ours on their roster, but hopefully we can find a way to beat these former players on the Blue Jackets and get ourselves to the second round and hopefully beyond that as well. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our New York Islanders franchise mode. So in next episode, we take it to the first round of the playoffs against some former players in Columbus. And we'll see if our team can find its way in the playoffs. Obviously, our offense is fantastic, but I'm hoping that we can find better goaltending results in the regular season. Also, hopefully our special teams can improve a little bit too in the playoffs, because if everything gets going a bit, then we could definitely be a threat. But if we're only scoring goals and we're not playing good defensive hockey, we're going to be definitely losing some games as well in the playoffs. So we got to be careful on that, and hopefully we find a way not to get cheesed. So I think that below, and I'll see you guys next time.